Rear Window was shot from exactly one position in Rear Window. Jeffries, played by James Stewart, is a professional photographer who is immobilized in his apartment due to a broken leg. To pass the time, he watches his neighbors from his rear window, piecing together their daily lives. He becomes suspicious when he notices strange activities in the apartment of Lars Thorwald, Raymond Burr, a traveling salesman. Convinced that Thorwald has murdered his wife, Jeffries sets out to prove his theory, despite the physical limitations of his confinement. From the outset, Hitchcock places the audience in Jeffries' shoes. The camera never leaves the apartment, and the audience, like Jeffries, is forced to observe everything from a single vantage point. This technique creates an immersive experience, blurring the line between Jeffries' voyeurism and the audience's own. But why did Hitchcock make this creative decision? What are the cinematic and thematic reasons behind this choice? Theme of voyeurism. One of the central themes in Rear Window is voyeurism. Hitchcock's choice to shoot the film from a single position, confined to Jeffries' apartment, serves as a powerful visual representation of this theme. Jeffries becomes an involuntary voyeur, using his camera and binoculars to spy on his neighbors. This is reflected in the camera work itself, which forces the audience to adopt Jeffries' perspective. By limiting the camera's movement to Jeffries' apartment, Hitchcock aligns the viewer with the protagonist's point of view, making the audience complicit in his voyeuristic behavior. This restricted perspective heightens the suspense, as we are only allowed to see what Jeffries sees. We experience the same frustrations, fears, and uncertainties that he does. Hitchcock masterfully taps into the human fascination with watching others. He explores the ethical gray area of voyeurism, blurring the lines between innocent observation and invasive surveillance. By confining the film to a single point of view, Hitchcock underscores this idea, forcing us to question our own role as passive spectators. Creating suspense through limited perspective. Suspense in Rear Window is largely derived from the limitations of Jeffries' perspective. As a thriller, the film plays with the audience's knowledge and the protagonist's uncertainty. By shooting from a single position, Hitchcock intentionally limits what we know, intensifying the mystery. For example, Jeffries' physical limitations mean that he cannot investigate Thorwald's apartment directly. He must rely on what he can observe from his window. He also cannot intervene when his girlfriend, Lisa, Grace Kelly, or his nurse, Stella, Thelma Ritter, put themselves in danger. This helplessness amplifies the tension. The single viewpoint also adds layers of ambiguity. Because Jeffries cannot see everything, the audience is left to fill in the gaps. This uncertainty plays a key role in the development of suspense. Is Jeffries' theory about Thorwald correct? Or is he simply projecting his own frustrations onto his neighbor? Hitchcock masterfully exploits the limited perspective to create a sense of dread and paranoia. In this way, the single position serves both the film's narrative and its psychological underpinnings. We are trapped, like Jeffries, in a state of powerlessness, relying solely on fragmented observations. This creates a unique form of suspense, where the tension comes not from action or violence but from the limitations of what we can see. Psychological tension and claustrophobia. Hitchcock's decision to shoot the entire film from one position also enhances the psychological tension of Rear Window. Jeffries is not only physically confined to his apartment, but he is also mentally trapped in a state of isolation. His injury has taken away his mobility, leaving him to stew in boredom and frustration. The camera's immobility mirrors his confinement, reinforcing the sense of claustrophobia that permeates the film. This psychological tension is a key aspect of the film's suspense. Jeffries' confinement leads him to become increasingly obsessed with the lives of his neighbors. As the camera never leaves his apartment, the audience is drawn deeper into his perspective, sharing his growing paranoia. The single position also amplifies the isolation. Jeffries is cut off from the outside world, unable to physically interact with the people and events unfolding before him. The audience experiences this same isolation, unable to see beyond the limited view from the window. This creates a sense of entrapment, as we are forced to rely on what little we can observe. This feeling of claustrophobia is heightened by the film's setting. The small, Enclosed space of Jeffrey's apartment contrasts with the wide-open courtyard outside. The camera's immobility within the apartment creates a stark visual juxtaposition, emphasizing the protagonist's isolation. Mastering visual storytelling. Another reason for Hitchcock's decision to shoot from a single position is his mastery of visual storytelling. Rear Window is a film that relies heavily on visual cues to convey its narrative. By limiting the camera's perspective, Hitchcock challenges himself and the audience to interpret the story through observation alone. The film's visual storytelling is exemplified in the way Hitchcock reveals information about the characters. Each neighbor has a distinct personality and story, and Hitchcock conveys these through their actions and interactions, all observed from a distance. For example, Miss Lonely Hearts is a lonely woman who acts out romantic fantasies in her apartment, while the songwriter struggles to compose a new piece of music. These stories unfold without dialogue, relying entirely on visual storytelling. Hitchcock's decision to restrict the camera's movement enhances this form of storytelling. By forcing the audience to observe the characters from a single perspective, he invites us to engage with the film in a more active way. We become detectives, piecing together the narrative through visual clues. This approach not only adds depth to the film but also makes it a more immersive and engaging experience. Technical innovation. Building the set shooting from a single position presented significant technical challenges, which Hitchcock and his team overcame through innovative set design. The entire film takes place in and around the apartment complex, which was constructed on a massive soundstage at Paramount Studios. The set was designed with meticulous attention to detail, allowing Hitchcock to control every aspect of the environment. The courtyard, with its multiple apartments, was built to scale, and the set was designed to be fully functional. Each apartment had working lights, furniture, and even plumbing. This allowed the actors playing Jeffrey's neighbors to perform in real time, enhancing the realism of the scenes. To maintain the illusion of the single viewpoint, Hitchcock used a variety of camera techniques. He employed long lenses to create the effect of Jeffrey's spying on his neighbors from a distance, and he used intricate lighting setups to create the film's distinctive look. The camera's immobility within Jeffrey's apartment also required careful planning in terms of blocking and composition. Each shot was meticulously framed to maximize the visual storytelling potential of the limited viewpoint. The audience as voyeur. Hitchcock's decision to shoot from a single position also has a meta-cinematic dimension. By aligning the audience's perspective with Jeffrey's, Hitchcock makes us complicit in his voyeurism. We are not passive observers but active participants in the act of watching. This creates a sense of unease as we become aware of our own role as voyeurs. This meta-cinematic approach is enhanced by the film's structure. Like Jeffrey's, we are confined to a single viewpoint, unable to see beyond the limits of the camera's frame. This forces us to question the ethics of our own spectatorship. Are we, like Jeffrey's, crossing a line by watching the lives of others unfold from a distance? Hitchcock plays with this idea throughout the film, particularly in the way he frames the neighbors' stories. Each character's life is like a miniature drama, played out in the background of Jeffrey's observations. By forcing us to watch these stories unfold from a single position, Hitchcock draws attention to the act of watching itself, making it a central theme of the film. The payoff. Building to a climax, the tension created by the single viewpoint reaches its peak in the film's climactic moments. When Jeffrey's suspicions about Thorwald are confirmed, the camera remains confined to the apartment, forcing us to experience the danger from Jeffrey's limited perspective. The sense of helplessness is palpable as Thorwald realizes he is being watched and confronts Jeffrey's. In the final showdown, Jeffrey's is unable to escape or defend himself, relying on his camera flash to temporarily blind Thorwald. The confined perspective heightens the suspense, as we are forced to watch the confrontation from the same limited viewpoint. This culminates in a thrilling, visually striking sequence that reinforces the power of Hitchcock's decision to shoot from a single position. Conclusion. A cinematic masterstroke. Hitchcock's decision to shoot Rear Window from a single position was a bold and innovative choice that transformed the film into a masterpiece of suspense and visual storytelling. By CONF.